So on SmackDown this past Friday, you had night one of the 2024 draft, or the draft lottery as they used to call it. We're gonna shake things up, pal. There was a superstar shake-up, they called it back. I think it was in 2017 time, and most people agreed that this draft it was a real letdown. It was a bit of a stinker. There wasn't any major huge changes. You still had Bianca Belair staying on SmackDown. Jey Uso is going to be on Raw. Seth Rollins is still going to be on Raw. Randy Orton's still going to be in SmackDown. And then you have Liv Morgan, who's still going to be on Raw. Wasn't any really proper changes. I mean, you've got Nia Jax going to SmackDown, but who really cares? You've got Carmelo Hayes, who's been on NXT. He's going to SmackDown. It's like, okay, whatever. And then you've got Braun Breaker, who's been wrestling on SmackDown, but he's going to Raw. So it's like, okay, fair enough. Braun Breaker, he seems to be, he's going to be a future star. But nothing really. It's real disappointing. I mean, and I think a lot of people can make the argument that this whole thing with the draft and the whole brand split, it's kind of just, it's not really that good. And it kind of goes back to when it started for me. I wasn't really a fan of it. And it took me a few years of the brand split for me to kind of fully appreciate it and think, you know what, that's actually all right. But this draft, I mean, okay, this is night one, and I get it. Tomorrow, tomorrow on Raw, there'll be the night two, and it'll continue. But so far from seeing this might be the worst draft ever, the worst WWE draft ever of all time. I can think back to like 2004 when it was like, you had Booker T, the Dudleys, and RVD go to SmackDown, and I think Triple H was supposed to go to SmackDown, but then in the end he got it changed, and some people say that draft wasn't all that good, and then like I don't know, Spike Dudley going to SmackDown. Can't remember exactly who all went to Raw, but it wasn't seen as that good of a draft. But I mean, compared to the draft that this past Friday, that draft was pretty decent. That changed things, but it doesn't seem like things are really going to change that much because I believe is that all the champions are ineligible, so they'll stay on the same show, with the exception, I think, of the tag champions, Asuka and is it Kairi Sane. But apart from that, though, there isn't really any big changes. I mean, okay, Braun Breaker, you could push him, make him a big star on Raw, but it's like, who really gives a shit, though? There hasn't been that many huge changes. I mean, think back to previous drafts. I mean, there was things. It did change things. It did. I mean, you had the one in 2011, and I know it was like you had Cena go to SmackDown, but then later on at the end of the show, he went back to Raw, and it was that was the whole, the whole swerve there. But again, this one has just been piss poor. But they've got a chance tomorrow on Raw to have a few different changes, make it interesting, but I think there's only much they can do, but you'd like to think that WWE now, different new regime, that they're going to actually listen to the fans, that they give more of a damn about the fans than, Vince McMahon did, right? And that they could make a few interesting changes for each show. But I don't know. I don't know what the hell they're going to do. I don't have that much faith in them, to be honest with you. I think going back to the start, in fairness, the brand split was a mistake. At that time, anyway. I mean, you had the brand split, and then after that, you had WWE, WWF, then being called WWE. Rock was going to do movies. Austin quit. There was so many different changes, and then the product just wasn't the same. There was just a lot of changes there, and I mean, it maybe does go back to 2001 when Vince bought WCW, bought his own competition, but I think it's been more of a detriment to the overall product. But in fairness, I remember when, they were kind of being very, loose with the whole brand split back in like 2011 time, 2012, and then it got to a point where they just dropped it, right? And then everybody was on the same shows until 2016. And then around that time, though, I was kind of thinking, like, from 2012, 2015, I was kind of like, hang on, I actually like the brand split, The brand split would have been better. But at that point, they showed like it's like they just didn't care anymore. You know what I mean? And it still was that kind of that thing of SmackDown being the B show, because it was like if it was the main champion, they would just appear on Raw. Very rarely would they appear on SmackDown, and it was very much usually SmackDown by most people has been perceived as the B show, and they didn't do anything to help with that. But things now, the brand split 2016, and I thought was somewhat of an improvement. I haven't really been following the product now for a few years, and it's like I just haven't been following what's been going on all that much with drafts and whatnot from the past 2-3 years. But yeah, I mean, you've got Andrade now going to SmackDown, so he might be involved in that stuff, I imagine, with the whole Mysterio, the LWO thing. But there's nothing major there, nothing huge. Go back to drafts, even back in 2008, I think they were actually doing that kind of like a shoot, like people didn't know that they were going to be drafted. When you had JR getting drafted to SmackDown live on Raw, he looked pissed, right? He didn't know that was coming. He was visibly pissed off, right? And then Michael Cole went to Raw, although Michael Cole was a little bit more professional about it. But JR was not happy at all about that. And so maybe back then it was generally a shoot, a surprise. People didn't know what show they were going to, didn't know it was going to happen, take place. Maybe some of the top guys they knew, but no, again. Let's hope that they're actually going to listen to the back, what people have been saying. I'm sure they're very much aware of the backlash, from what people have been saying on social media, on Twitter, or X as they call it these days. There's a chance, give us a few surprises with people that are, that they'll have go from Raw to SmackDown or SmackDown to Raw. You want to keep it somewhat interesting. But I think they're kind of limited to what they can do now. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like what? Well, Jade, will Jade Cargill go to Raw because Bianca Belair's go to SmackDown? I don't think they're going to make any huge differences, because I think they want to have them as a tag team, right? So I don't know if there's any big major changes that they've got planned, but you'd like to think that they give a shit about what the fans say, and if the majority of people are saying this sucks, that it sucked last Friday, the draft. It's like, well, have a few. Don't be afraid to shake things up a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, one of probably the best drafts when you think back was probably 2005, right? When you had Cena going from Raw to SmackDown, Batista going from SmackDown to Raw. I don't think anyone saw that coming. That was kind of somewhat surprising, but I don't know if they've got the guts to do anything huge to make any major changes to the both shows. I don't know. I don't see it personally, though. I really don't. But that's my thoughts overall on this stuff with the draft. Give me your take. Feel free to hit the subscribe button, and let me know what your thoughts are on this stuff with the draft. Could you see a couple of different changes being made? Do you think maybe, I don't know, like a Drew McIntyre should go from Raw to SmackDown? Sami Zayn. But no, I don't think Sami Zayn can get drafted, can he? But I don't know. What changes do you think that could be made, though, with the draft when it continues tomorrow on Raw? But that's my thoughts for now, guys. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.